We'll go through each team here on the NASCAR Cup Series side of things, the major ones. We're not going to talk about the little back markers that are just going to be trundling around the track this season that we don't know who they're going to put in the car for 2022. We're talking about the main ones, maybe even a new team or two that's coming into next season if there's a driver that we think could be possibly filling out that driver lineup.
Okay.
We'll be talking about the ones that are currently on the Cup Series grid as well. So let's start off with Hendrick Motorsports, the team that won the NASCAR Cup Series championship, Kyle.
That's a fun one to say. Shout out Jeff Gordon.
Shout out Jeff Gordon. I'll be happy to give any time we can give a shout out to Jeff Gordon. That is going to be a great episode. So we Chase Elliott, right? Going to be staying there. He's signed to a contract. The defending Cup Series champion. I don't see him leaving there anytime soon. William Byron, I have him there as well. Kyle Larson, obviously coming into the Cup Series for his return this upcoming season. He's going to be there next season. This is a long-term, I think, play by Hendrick Motorsports. They want Kyle Larson in that organization long-term. And then Alex Bowman is a guy that is out of contract this upcoming season. He needs to get a deal done to race for that team in 2022. And let's not forget, it is on the cards that we are going to the next-gen car in 2022. So do teams really want to switch things up for this upcoming season in 2022, that is, or do they want to kind of keep it a little bit more of the same and just stick with the foundation that they're going to build this year and carry it over to next year? And I'm going to say that Hendrick Motorsports does carry that foundation. I'm going to say Alex Bowman does get a contract extension. It just makes too much sense for myself, because they're switching him over to the 48. Ally is a big sponsor over there. He's got the funding now. I would be shocked if he honestly leaves that team for 2022. But I've seen crazier things happen. It could possibly be the case. But Alex Bowman has done enough during his time in the number 88. And I think this upcoming season he will perform to the standards that we expect of him in the 48 this upcoming season. So who do you have for Hendrick Motorsports in 2022?
Yeah, Hendrick has 3 as close to guarantees, if not guaranteed, as possible. And that's Larson, Elliott, and Byron in the 5, 9, and 24. The only question mark for me is the 48 and Bowman. I would be, similar to you, very surprised if he's not returning, because he's going over to the 48. He's the successor to Jimmy Johnson. And I would be very surprised if after one season in the 48, they look to mix things up again. There's only one name that I could see potentially if he becomes available, and that's Brad Keselowski. But I think that that's probably a long shot at this point. So I like Alex Bowman returning to the 48 as well.
All right. Hendrick Motorsports stays intact for this upcoming season. Do you want to take it away with Team Penske then? Who do you have for their lineup?
Yeah, Team Penske. The 12 and the 22 are basically confirmed. We've got Blaney and Logano returning there because they're both on multi-year contracts. Obviously, Blaney re-signing literally like a few weeks before COVID hit, so shout out to him for getting that contract done. Brad Keselowski wasn't so lucky, though. He re-signed in the middle of the season on a one-year deal, and that leaves a lot of speculation for some people. Whether you look back to the beginning of last year and you look at the crew chief shakeup and how he was the one perceived to be on the losing end of it all, or how the season played out and only getting the one-year extension. But there's one thing that was announced last year that makes me think that Brad Keselowski returning to Penske is basically already a done deal, and that's Austin Cindric's announcement. Because I don't think that they would have announced that Austin Cindric is going to the 21 if there was potentially a seat available with Brad Keselowski potentially leaving at Penske, because that would make no sense. Why would you name Cindric to the 21, leave to Benedetto gone, and then have to go out and get somebody else when you know Cindric is eventually going to end up at Penske? So why not just do it right out of the gate? So because of that, I thought about maybe getting a little bit risky here and going Keselowski moving on, but I just don't see it happening. I think the one-year thing was just a stopgap because of COVID, because of money and everything like that. When things get back more to normal, finances return more to normal this year, I think we'll see a long-term extension for Penske and Brad Keselowski. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I've got Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski as well over there at Team Penske.
Okay.
I thought if he was going to make the move to leave Penske, it would have been this past season, and it did not come to fruition. He seems like he's happy over there at Penske for the most part, and I don't see the opportunity arising for him elsewhere that was like this past season with all the movement. There's less opportunity elsewhere that I could see him fitting in. Hendrick Motorsports is the immediate tie that you think of, but Alex Bowman just seems like he's an integral part over there now at that organization. If that was maybe a year or two ago in Brad Keselowski contract up, then we're maybe talking about a different thing. thing. But right now, they don't really have anybody in their pipeline other than Austin Cindric, but he's going over to the 21. So it makes sense for Penske to keep a hold of Brad Keselowski and keep that famous trio that they've come to really groom over the past couple of seasons together. So I'm staying the same with Kyle here. 2 for 2 here with Penske and Hendrick Motorsports. We move into, I'd say, Joe Gibbs Racing, finishing, I guess, third in terms of the organizations this past season, with Denny Hamlin finishing fourth in the championship finale. We've got some interesting names over here at Joe Gibbs Racing, some different ties to different organizations as well, with one name being Denny Hamlin, you think of with his newly named team with 2311 Racing making its debut this upcoming season with the Michael Jordan partnership. So Joe Gibbs Racing, a very interesting one. This is where I actually have my first big change for 2022. I will say that. I've got Kyle Busch obviously staying over there. He's got a multi-year contract that he signed.
No KBM to Cup?
No, I don't think I'm going to go that bold. Kyle Busch is going to stay over there at Joe Gibbs Racing. Christopher Bell, they're making a commitment to him this upcoming season. They booted out Eric Jones. They're obviously going to keep Christopher Bell there long-term. Martin Truex Jr., I think, does return to the 19 car next season. And my big shakeup is that Denny Hamlin leaves Joe Gibbs Racing.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in a contract year. Martin Truex Jr. is as well, but they're still at the top of their game. We saw that this past season, Denny Hamlin finishing with 7 victories on the season. So he's done exceptionally well these past 2 years. And Martin Truex Jr. had a little bit of a down year, but I'll put a little bit of that onto the new scenery with James Small being atop of the pit box. But, you know, I could see maybe one or either of these guys kind of leaving this team for different reasons. Maybe Martin Truex Jr. with Sherry Pollock's, his health situation. Maybe he wants to take that step back after this season when he's in a contract year. He feels like he's done enough, but I'm wishing Sherry all the best in her recovery as well with that. So I'll say that, you know, Truex is going to stick around for a little bit longer. I don't think he's ready to hang up the fire suit just yet. So then to replace Denny Hamlin over there at Joe Gibbs Racing, I'm going with Harrison Burton to come up then to the Cup Series in 2022 to drive the number 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is a bit of a tough one. I was questioning if I should even make this move, but you can kind of infer where I put Hamlin later on in this kind of portion of the episode. But Harrison Burton, he's going to be in the Xfinity Series now for 2 seasons. He's got Dex Imaging, Dex, whatever the parts, Dex Imaging, I believe it is, as a great sponsor for him throughout the entire ranks up through then K&N, and then what is currently now ARCA, the Truck Series as well, and then now in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing. He's just been on that kind of route up through the rankings, and he's had a very impressive rookie season. Didn't quite make the playoffs as far as he would have liked to, but I think this next season he takes that next step forward. He's going to have some reliable teammates to have a say in his performance as well with the car development throughout the season as well. So I think Harrison Burton can make that step up. I never really thought Harrison Burton was that guy that was going to be maybe moving up to the Cup Series to replace one of these departing veterans, but maybe that is the case. I don't know. It is one of my big bold predictions for this next season, and why not? It's preseason. I can go with whatever I want here. So I'm going to say Denny Hamlin leaves Joe Gibbs Racing and Harrison Burton steps into that number 11.
Whew. Bring in the heat early here. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I've obviously got Kyle Busch returning to the 18. He's on a multi-year contract. No surprise there. I also have Martin Truex Jr. returning to the 19. I think that the rumors there are a lot of people kind of guessing and trying to infer on a situation that they know nothing about. And clearly Truex is still a top-level driver, and I still see him sticking around for at least a couple more years. And Christopher Bell just got there, for crying out loud. And he's the Toyota poster boy when you look at him coming up through the ranks. Yeah. They've spent a lot of money on him. He can have a terrible first year, and he'll still be there for at least a couple more seasons after that. So I think those 3 are for sure. The big question mark is Denny Hamlin. You went bold with it and said that he's going to make the little switcheroo there. I went conservative with it. I think that Denny Hamlin's going to stay in the 11 for at least a couple more years. I think that making the jump over to his own team right now is just a little bit premature. So I'm going to say that Denny Hamlin stays in the number 11, and there's no changes at JGR going into next season.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I just kind of –
I love it. I was
close. I was close to doing what you did, but – I figured I've been totally shocked in the past. Maybe I can get ahead of this shock. Maybe I can be the first one to predict it.
Hey, but at least we have our bases covered, because if
exactly.
he stays, then
exactly
we're at least somewhat right. So.
And I don't see anybody else other than Harrison Burton really coming up to replace him, in my opinion, for Denny Hamlin, just because he is a young Toyota developing prospect moving over to a next generation of car. If you're going to make a change, I think that would make the most sense in terms of timing. But that remains to be seen if that is ever going to be the case.
Yeah, if JGR has somebody move on, whether that's Hamlin switching teams or Truex retiring, I do think Harrison Burton's next man up as well. So
okay, fair enough. Joe Gibbs Racing gets a bit of a different look for 2022. For me, he stays the same over there for Kyle. We move on to Stewart-Haas Racing. Kevin Harvick's team basically is what it can be renamed to. But Kevin Harvick is in a multi-year deal. It runs out in 2023. He'll be back with the team next season. We can put that to bed. Kevin Harvick is going to be back at Stewart-Haas Racing. But who have you got filling out the rest of the Stewart-Haas Racing lineup?
This is a fun one, because I think that Harvick's obviously staying. Briscoe's obviously staying. And Custer's an interesting one, but there's no way that they give up on him yet, just given, obviously, the history as a prospect with that team. So I think that there's 3 guarantees there, which leaves the 10 car. And that's an interesting one for me. And I do have it changing. I think, yeah, I'm going a little bit on this one. So SHR for these last few years has been a one-man show. And as you stated off of your intro for the team, it's the Kevin Harvick show there. They need somebody else to go to that team and try and do something. And what they've had the last few years is a couple solid drivers, but those are drivers in specifically talking about Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer, who are going to perform at the level of the car. They're not going to exceed the level of the car or anything like that. So I think having 2 young guys there in Briscoe and Custer that you can build for the future, having Harvick there as a current star, I think SHR is going to move along this year from Eric Almirola and look elsewhere for somebody that could potentially take that step with this team and maybe be a hidden gem or something like that. So going to the number 10, I have Matt Benedetto.
Wow.
I think when I look at the list of free agents here, I think that SHR is going to move on from Almirola here. It's just become stagnant there. And as I said, they've got 1 big dog there in Harvick. They've got 2 young guys. They need somebody to kind of bridge that gap. I think it's run its course with Almirola in terms of the level of competition there. So I think they'll look elsewhere. When I look at the list of free agents and somebody that's kind of established in Cup, has shown that they can do solid in decent equipment, at least this last season with Wood Brothers, I think he's going to have a strong year again this year. So I think Matt Benedetto to SHR in the number 10.
Wow. That's
how you like that
bold.
one?
That's
Okay.
up there, man, with bold. Wow. Wow, geez. I when I was looking at this, I never really thought of the Benedetto to the 10. I'm going to be completely honest. Yeah, I'll move on to where I think the Benedetto is going a little bit later on. But
Yes.
For Stewart-Haas Racing, I've got Cole Custer as well, staying there. They're not going to give up on him. He's a future talent in this sport. Had a little bit of a rough season with consistency, but did get that win at Kentucky. So there is signs of progression and
Yeah.
And there is a potential there with Cole Custer. Chase Briscoe, they're not going to get rid of him anytime soon, I don't think. He even have a bomb for a season, and he would still be back with the team in 2022, I'd imagine, just because of that Tony Stewart relationship that they seem to have really, really a tight bond there. But Chase Briscoe is one heck of a race car driver as well. And I do have Eric Almirola staying at Stewart-Haas Racing.
Okay.
If they would have parted ways with him, I think it would have been this past season. But they want him to stay there. He's got significant backing from Smithfield. I don't see that relationship breaking anytime soon, and it just makes sense for him to kind of stay there. It seems like they're pretty, okay with having a one-man show over there with Kevin Harvick, and then leaving the rest to kind of battle for that playoff cut line when one guy can kind of dominate the team. I think a lot of that comes with Rodney Childress over there, that 4 team. I think they bring that organization up a lot, and they're just a great duo, probably the best duo in the garage area. But I do have Eric Almirola staying in the 10. I don't know. I just feel like if they haven't made the decision already, they're just going to keep him there. I would.
Well, the one thing I'll say is they have been changing one driver fairly consistently over these last seasons. When you look at Daniel Suarez going in and then being replaced by Cole Custer, and then this year Clint Boyer going out for Chase Briscoe, I'm thinking maybe Eric Almirola stuck around because they don't want to completely overhaul the team and have a driver lineup change or anything like that. Do these little changes, and with Briscoe, Custer in, Harvick ain't going anywhere. I think it might be time to maybe switch it up with Almirola. But yeah, I got the bold one. You got the bold one in Hamlin there. So
I like it. I do like that pick a lot.
I gotta say.
I didn't know that Almirola was in a contract year. I thought he signed a multi-year. I wasn't 100% sure on it, but
contracts are only a piece of paper.
Fair enough. So Stewart-Haas Racing remains the same for me. Kyle switches it up over there at the Kevin Harvick Racing organization. So we move on to Chip Ganassi Racing here, Kyle.
Okay.
A two-car organization for the most part. They move up to 3 cars next season? No, do they not? Oh, who knows? But we've got one guy that is, I think, going to be there at least for 2022, and that's going to be Ross Chastain. They're taking a bet on him this upcoming season. I'm not 100% sold on him as of yet for the Cup Series level and the Cup Series ride that he's going to be in. It's a pretty high profile ride over there in the 42 car. So we'll see how he does with the expectations and what kind of results he can get out of it. But I'll say that he stays there for another season. And then the second seat, man, it is a little bit up in the air. Kurt Busch and a contract year. There have been talks of him, this could be his final season this upcoming year. But the one thing that makes me think that he's going to be coming back in 2022 is he's been the tester for the next gen car, and they want to make sure that he's going to be doing the best job it can to be great for 2022. And I think he's going to be testing that out for a full-time schedule in 2022. I think he stays over there for a 1-year contract. I think he's going to come back for 1 season with the next gen car. I don't think he's ready to hang it up just yet. Not just because I don't want him to, but I don't think he wants to either. I think there's a lot of drive inside Kurt Busch, and he has been doing a bit of the broadcasting thing as well, so that it could be similar to what Clint Boyer has done, where they just kind of feel like this is the end of the road for them. They don't really have much more to accomplish. But I think Kurt Busch can sign a 1-year deal, try out the next-gen car on a full-time basis. I don't think he would be doing these tests if that were to be the case if he's going to be retiring. So I think he's found a home over there at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's got the backing from Monster. He's not going to have any sponsorship problems. So I have the Chip Ganassi Racing stable staying the same for 2022.
Yeah, I've got Ross Chastain going back to the 42 as well. That one I feel like is an easy one because there's a history there, and I don't think that they'd give up on him after 1 year as well. Kind of a similar theme with some of these rookies, or I guess Chastain's not technically a rookie, but some of these young drivers stepping into new teams, I don't think that they would give up on him after 1 year. But Kurt Busch was the one that I think I battled on the most, because we've literally heard from him himself that it's 50-50 going into 2022. So he's been doing a lot of the testing, but does that mean that they want somebody that's active right now but won't be in 2022? Does it mean that he's interested and wants to return for 2022? I thought about reading into stuff. I don't really know, but there's always a couple retirements every year, and it's got to be somebody. So I'm going to say Kurt Busch retires from full-time racing.
I hope it doesn't happen, man. I love Kurt Busch.
I know.
Oh.
I'm going to say he retires from full-time racing. I think that he'll still do some select stuff, but I don't think he'll be returning full-time to that one car. Who the hell replaces him, though? Because when I looked at the list of stuff, I wanted to get a veteran in there, but when I looked at how everything shook out for me, there wasn't really a veteran available that really fit the bill. So I went to the little bit, I don't know if it's off the board, but it's maybe not something that you think of right away. I went to the Chevy Pipeline, and I'm going to say that partnering Ross Chastain in 2022 in the one car, Noah Gragson. A little younger lineup there for Chip Ganassi Racing, not something we've seen necessarily all too much. They usually have one veteran in there, but when I look at the list of people available, I don't see somebody that really fits that mold, as well as something else that I've got coming down the pipeline when we get to them eventually here in the Chevy camp. I think Gregson's going to end up in the one with Kurt Busch going into partial retirement. He'll still do a couple races here and there. He likes to run a bunch of different stuff, so I hope maybe we get to see that Kurt back where he's just going and doing whatever. But I think 2021 will be his final year full-time in NASCAR.
Oh God.
I know, it pains me to say.
That's oh God, I'm not ready for that. I am not ready for the emotions that'll come when Kurt Busch does retire. If John Hunter Nemechek was still in the Cup Series, he would have been my guy over there, probably
easy,
at Chip Ganassi Racing, right? But this move over the offseason to go back down to the Truck Series in the Toyota camp, I think that basically negates that, throws it completely out the window. So yeah, I was so torn on Kurt Busch because I think probably 70% of my decision for him to stay there is because I want him to stay there, and 30% is probably logic.
I thought about it. As I was saying it, I thought about just saying it, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what happens with Kurt Busch. Definitely one to keep your eye on. Probably the biggest name that could potentially retire at the end of this season. Hopefully that's not the case. We love Kurt Busch to stick around for at least another season after this one. Hopefully Kyle Busch, that is, can do a little bit of unless Kyle wants to DM him himself here. But if Kyle Busch can do a little bit of convincing,
I'll try my best.
I want to see. I don't want to see the scoreboard just say Busch when Kyle's just on it now.
I hadn't thought about that. That would be so weird.
I've been thinking about that for a couple of seasons, and I want to see that KY.Busch because that's just not right for me to see just Busch next to the 18. It gives me chills, man. I can't even think about it.
Okay.
It is the iconic duo, the Busch brothers I've grown up watching, and I hope that doesn't end after this upcoming season, but we will see what Kurt Busch's future has in store. We'll move on to Richard Childress Racing here. Kyle, who do you have for their lineup for 2022?
This one's nice and easy for me. If they weren't opening up the third car for Ty after this season, I don't think that they'll do it.
Poor Ty.
Poor Ty. But I've got same lineup. I've got Dillon returning to the 3 and Reddick returning to the 8. Reddick's an interesting one because if he has another really good season, maybe one of the bigger teams tries and poaching him. But I think the fact that RCR went out and got him in Xfinity means a lot to Reddick. And so I think that's going to stay the relationship for at least a couple more seasons. Maybe something comes down the pipeline for Reddick moving to a quote unquote bigger organization. But for now, I think Austin Dillon stays in the 3 and Tyler Reddick's returning to the 8.
I have the same thing. Austin Dillon in a contract year, but I don't imagine him leaving the 3 car. I would be shocked if he leaves not only the Fame 3, but also his grandfather's organization. I think that contract will take
That's
10
a
seconds.
lifetime contract.
That's like a Thanksgiving over Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing. Hey, you want to re-sign? Sure. What's the number? All right, take it. And,
for Austin's sake, I hope it happens before Thanksgiving. But
yeah, that's true. Maybe an Easter gift.
There we go.
Yeah, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick round up my Richard Childress Racing lineup. I just don't see it changing.
No third car. No third car for you.
Not for me. I'm not that ballsy yet. They don't have. If they had a more prominent driver in the Xfinity Series, I would think about it. But for right now, Mike Schneider, I don't think he's going to make that jump up to the Cup Series to, devote a third car to him. So I'll stay with Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick over there at Richard Childress Racing. This next one, simple. It's already confirmed. Austin Cindric moving over to Wood Brothers Racing. There's no real need to discuss that. Happy that they kind of got that one out of the way because it would be a question mark for this upcoming season if they had not announced it. But Austin Cindric going to be over there in the 21 car in 2022. We move on to Roush Fenway Racing. An interesting one, I'll say the least on this one. We've got 2 guys in there right now, Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman in a contract season as well, so one to keep your eye on in terms of results or what he does for his future plans. For me, I've got Chris Buescher returning to that team. They wanted him. They poached him from JTG. He had a little bit of a down year, but I put that to Roush's performance as a whole. Hopefully they can make that next step forward. And there's one guy I really haven't mentioned yet in terms of who's out over there in the NASCAR Cup Series that is going to be looking for a ride from the team that we just talked about there with Wood Brothers Racing. It's Matt Benedetto, and I see him riding over there at Roush Fenway Racing. The Ford camp, I think he stays in that camp, but I just don't see him getting that Stewart-Haas Racing ride. If he was going to go somewhere, it would have been the 10 for me, but I say that he just doesn't quite break through and get that, and he's going to go back a little bit in a step back, I'd say, but he's going to get a bit of a job security role here with Roush Fenway Racing. I don't see him moving manufacturers again. I think he's kind of happy over there with Ford. I think it would be a bad decision if he were to leave that camp because I think there would be opportunities in the future for him to stay over there in the Ford camp. So I think this could be a little bit of a stopgap kind of thing. Maybe 1-2 years over here at Roush, and then maybe look elsewhere. Maybe when Kevin Harvick retires, I don't know. But Matt Benedetto is someone that has been a fan favorite, your favorite driver as of right now as well. I see him landing over there at Roush Fenway Racing for me.
I like that. I like that pick. And if I didn't go bold with the Amarillo one, I think I would have probably put Benedetto with Roush as well, because I do think that Newman retires after this year. It just kind of, it
makes
just
sense.
Works, right? The contract's up, new car, all this kind of stuff. Especially after the incident at the beginning of the year, obviously, just makes sense. And it's unfortunate to say, because Newman's been around for a while and he's a fun guy to have around. But you got to think that it's probably coming up on about time for him to retire here. But in the 17, I've got Busch returning as well. I like him long-term with Roush. And if they can start to turn things around as an organization, I think he's a sneaky guy going forwards as a guy that might be a hidden gem kind of thing. And partnering him, funny that you had Benedetto in the 6, because I've got the guy for me that Benedetto is replacing with SHR. I'm going to say Eric Almirola goes over to the 6 there.
Yes.
Probably brings over some Smith's Field sponsorship as well with him. I can't imagine that relationship ends. But I'm going to say Almirola to the 6, hopefully brings him some money as well with him. And maybe we see them return to at least some form going into the next couple of years, because
sure.
seeing Roush Fenway finishing like 18th on back is
pains me.
Heartbreaking. So I've got Newman retiring as well. You've got Benedetto going there. I'm going to say Amarillo ends up in the 6.
It's very interesting that we kind of had the same thought process a little bit, just different organizations. One thing off there with Matt Benedetto. I think that's the real big one this offseason that is for sure on the move. So we'll see where he ends up in 2022. So different look for Roush Fenway Racing over there for 2022. Ryan Newman, I have him retiring as well. Just makes sense for career timeline. And if Kurt Busch does retire, it would be, quite the story. The 2008 Daytona 1-2 finish there with Newman and Kurt Busch, the Penske teammates back then. They go out on their own terms here for this one. It would be a nice storyline, but I hope Kurt Busch does stick around for at least another season. I will just keep on harping on that throughout the year. I think we move on to Front Row Motorsports. Okay. A bit of I'm going to put this as an easy one, but who do you have over there for that organization?
Yeah, for starters, I don't see Michael McDowell going anywhere the rest of his career. He's a front row guy at this point. He's had a very strong season last year. I think they'll continue to build on that this year, so I don't see that changing into 2022. And similarly for the 38, unless Alfredo decides to pull a wild card and go down to KBM, I think that could be a potential long-term relationship as well, where front row brings in a young guy and kind of develops alongside of him. So I've got McDowell in the 34, Alfredo in the 38, nice and easy.
Yeah, nice and easy for me as well. Sticking with it. We'll see what Anthony Alfredo does. That could potentially change. I could see that it changing for 2022 depending on results. But for right now, I don't want to jump to anything too quickly here. We need to see what he can do. And then maybe when it comes time for a mid-season stuff that we're going to do, we may have a different opinion on that. But for right now, Anthony Alfredo, Mike McDowell round out the 2-car, staying over there with the 2-car tandem over there for Front Row Motorsports. Moving on to Jtg Doherty Racing, I'd say here, Kyle.
Yes.
An interesting one for myself. I do have a bit of a shakeup over there for that team. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is in a contract season this upcoming year, but I see him staying. He was one that I was really considering changing. I was really, really close with him moving teams, but I just couldn't quite think of an organization that he would fit best in elsewhere. I don't know if he's done enough to justify a move up to a better team than what JTG is when you look at what he's had with Roush and what he did with JTG. He had some moments last year, but more often than not, he was kind of wrecked in the garage area before the end of the race. So
JTG as a whole, man, they did not have any luck.
They had the worst streak in NASCAR history with consecutive last place finishes. So not a great look on that team at that midway point of the season, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I say that he returns to the team. He's got some funding over there. I don't know. I just feel like he's got to stay there. I don't know where he could go elsewhere. I hope he doesn't go up to a bigger team, because I think it's taking away from somebody that's probably more deserving than what he is. I hate to say it, but it is the truth, I feel like. But then to partner him, I do have Ryan Preece on the way out of Jtg Doherty Racing, not only just because it is an open entry car, it seems, for this upcoming season, but based off of the results from last year. I am a big Ryan Preece guy. I think he is a good driver. I just don't think he'll have the results enough this season to justify him staying in that car. So then to partner Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I've got Brandon Jones coming up to the Cup Series next season. I think Xfinity Series for JGR, that is going to be completely revamped after the departure of Harrison Burton and Brandon Jones. Those two guys have been there for a little bit. Brandon Jones was rumored to maybe even come up to the Cup Series for this season. He's got the backing from Menards. I think he's in line for some sort of bump up to the Cup Series. Well, he's not going to get a top tier ride, but I think a mid-pack team like this would be probably a reasonable ask for someone like Brandon Jones. He brings sponsorship and he's had some pretty decent results. I mean, he beat Kyle Busch at Phoenix last year, if you didn't know, in the Xfinity Series, if they didn't mention that in the broadcast enough this past year. But nonetheless, Brandon Jones going to be over there in the 37 car for me and partnering Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Still better about that one, eh?
Nope.
Already. JTG. I agree with Ricky Stenhouse. I thought about moving him, but I just didn't see somewhere where he fit in. Because if you look at it,
had that thing with Roush, I would have said that maybe go back to there, but that was kind of a messy.
There's no way he goes back, I don't think. So I kept him there as well. But with the 37, I'm going to say it goes away. I'm going to say that JTG.
Whoa.
JTG, it's already an open entry this season. I think they may already have had some obligations to run the season in terms of sponsorship or anything like that going into this season. But the fact that they don't have a charter for that second entry right now is really, really interesting to me. And when I look at how things shake out, at least for myself here, unless they're outbidding somebody, I don't see them getting that charter back or loaning it or anything like that. So maybe a little bit bold. Maybe it's just a temporary thing until they get the finances back under them after COVID and everything. But I'm going to say the 47 goes away. Stenhouse becomes the 37 because the 37 is the number that they've had as their primary car most of the time. So last year you had a certain 48 shutting down.
That was a bit bold.
That was slightly bold. This year, I'm going to say the 47 shuts down.
Wow. That's a good one. You still seem to surprise me, Kyle, every time we do an episode. I do like that.
Look, I don't like doing it, but...
No, it does make sense, though. I can see the rationale. I think the reason I kind of kept it as a two-car organization is because of the kind of downcrease or... I guess, how would I word this? The funding for the car for 2022 is meant to be less. So maybe they can put more resources into buying a charter for some sort of team, and then they can focus on the car with it being a little bit more cost effective for every single team across the board. I was thinking about maybe moving Noah Gragson over here, that Hendrick Motorsports alliance.
If I kept the 37, I probably would have done something where Kurt Busch returns to the 1 and then Gragson goes to the 37, because I thought that would have been a good landing spot for him. But in my scenario here, he gets a little bit better there with Chip Ganassi, and the 37 goes away.
Yeah.
Or 47.
I was close. Whatever. I couldn't find a place other than GTG for Brandon Jones, but I could definitely see Gragson being the guy instead of Brandon Jones if he can find a place elsewhere. Right. It would make more sense with being the Hendrick kind of stable, but Brandon Jones was a Chevrolet driver before coming over to Toyota, was with RCR. So we'll see if that does come back to Brandon Jones, if he ends up coming to the Cup Series and to JTG. But for Kyle, he's got one car organization for JTG in 2022. I've got Brandon Jones taking over for Ryan Preece. And I say Preece just finds a spot down the Xfinity Series, maybe somewhere else, just not going to be in the Cup Series, I don't think, in 2022.
Maybe he replaces one of those guys at Joe Gibbs or something like that.
Potentially. I think that would be a good landing spot for him, to be honest. It would make sense in terms for me, but we'll move on to an easy one here. I think, Kyle, Richard Petty Motorsports. I think you have Eric Jones staying there.
Yeah, it's got to be Eric Jones. He was such a good free agent signing for them to get him at a discount, I believe on a multi-year deal as well. I believe when that was announced, and
It was.
obviously multi-year deal can mean 1 year plus 1 year option. So we never know with that stuff. Like Benedetto was a multi-year deal at Levine Family Racing, and he was done after a year, for example. So, but yeah, no, Eric Jones staying in the 43. I feel like there's nothing really next season that'll make one of the bigger organizations go, oh yeah, we need to buy him out of his contract and bring him out of Richard Petty after this season being available without having to buy him out and nobody really biting on it. So I think after his contract's up with Petty, maybe he gets a return to a bigger organization, but for now I think he's staying in the 43.
I hope he gets that chance again. I don't think he should be
hey,
there.
Best case scenario, Petty just gets better and better, but
yeah, I've got Eric Jones staying there for 2022 as well.
Yeah, that's
multi-year
an easy
deal. Very similar to what it's like the unconfirmed confirmed of Austin Cindric, if that makes any sense. But Eric Jones, I think, is going to stay over there in the iconic number 43 for at least 2 seasons. We'll see where he ends up maybe after that multi-year contract is up. Moving into one of the last teams that was currently on the field for this past season, that's Spire Motorsports, putting a bit more investment into the Cup Series this upcoming season. Obviously, Corey LaJoie going to be their full-time guy over there, with some part-time stuff with the other car that they're going to be running on the side with the 77. Corey LaJoie's got the number 7. So for me, I've got Corey LaJoie returning to that team. It just makes the most sense. They seem to be pretty happy with what he's going to be bringing to the table. And then to partner him, I think it's going to be a full-time entry in that second car in 2022. I got Justin Haley moving up to the Cup Series for Spire Motorsports.
Okay.
I think it makes the most sense. He's been running part-time for them for the past couple of seasons now. They seem to be interested in him. There's rumors of Collie coming up to the Cup Series full-time in 2022. That's basically confirmed. But he is an Xfinity Series driver for Collie, but I don't see him making that jump up to the Cup Series for them. I think he's kind of got a little bit of prior engagement with Spire that could lend himself to moving there instead. And we'll talk about Collie racing maybe a little bit later on in the show. But I've got Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie over there for Spire.
I like that. For Spire, for me, for starters, the charter shenanigans and whatnot, right now they've got 3. They've got 2 that they're using themselves, and then they're loaning 1 to Trackhouse right now. But for Spire, I'm going to say that the 7 Corey LaJoie, that stays, but they don't have another charter used by themselves. I think that they're going to loan out that second charter to somebody else. They might have some open entries or whatnot if they do want to run a second car themselves still. But for me, I think that they're going to run that 1 charter themselves, and then they're going to loan it still to Trackhouse and then loan it to another team, which we'll get to, I would assume, in a minute.
Yes. I think we can get that to that team probably right now, I'd say.
Okay.
Unless you're thinking of something different. I don't know. Could be wrong. Wait, no, maybe not. It could be something different. But we'll move on to a team that's going to be coming to the lineup this season. Kyle, 2311 Racing. Bubba Wallace over there for this upcoming season. Who do you have over there in 2022?
All righty. Bubba Wallace staying in the 23. That one's easy. I have them expanding to a second car, though, as do you.
Yeah.
Unless you've got Denny Hamlin going to, like, Trackhouse or something. You've got Denny Hamlin going as that second car there. I have Denny Hamlin returning to JGR. So, for starters, just to get the charter shenanigans out of the way, I think that they'll purchase one from Rick Ware Racing, and Rick Ware will go keep their 3 cars that they've usually had. They purchased one last year from Premium Motorsports, so they've got an extra one coming into this season than they usually do. I think they'll sell one of those to 2311, and 2311 goes to a 2-car stable. And partnering Bubba Wallace in the 45, because, of course, Michael Jordan's other number, John Hunter Nemechek. I'm going bold with it. I think when I look at the pipeline, I think Joe Gibbs Racing will want to have Harrison Burton step into their stable probably in 2, maybe 3 years when Hamlin or Truex move on there. They played the long game with Christopher Bell. He stayed quite a while when you look at his age and his performance coming up the ranks. I think John Hunter Nemechek going to Toyota and with KBM is a very telling thing, and the fact that it wasn't Joe Gibbs Racing and Xfinity as well is very interesting to me. So I'm going bold with it. I'm going to say 2311 Toyota. They get another entry in the Cup Series, and it's going to John Hunter Nemechek.
Wow. Fair play. Fair play. Wow, that is interesting. I have Denny Hamlin going over to that team as pretty much
What number? What number?
It is interesting that now that I think about it, because it is 2311 Racing, and it would be kind of stupid if he doesn't run the 11 over there if he's not in the 11, because it is 2311.
What other number could JGR run if they did?
I don't know. I think they would have to kind of sell the 11 to Denny Hamlin if he were to come over there. It wouldn't make sense if they had 2311 in their name. Maybe I kind of messed that up.
Would they run the 54? But that's a Kyle Busch thing, so I don't know.
I could see them running the 54. I think that would make sense for them. Harrison Burton maybe moving around a little bit in that stable in terms of numbers. But I have Denny Hamlin coming over to his own team. Contract year. It makes the most sense.
It does kind of look perfect.
There is sponsorship obligations, of course. FedEx is going to fall in basically anywhere, I'd feel like. You'd have to maybe switch off of the Coke brand. You'd have to go over to Dr. Pepper, as we've seen from this past off season, where they've got Dr.
That's
Pepper
a fun one.
Going over with Bubba Wallace now. So maybe there's some future kind of negotiation to go on there. But you'd think that Denny Hamlin would want to drive for his own team. It just would make the most sense. This is the year to do it if he's going to do it at all in 2022. New car, level playing field for mostly every single driver, every single team. I just think it makes perfect sense. It seems like they have a good relationship between Bubba and Denny. And I think it would be kind of a shame if he didn't go and race for his own team. I think it would be kind of stupid, but I kind of hope this happens, because I think it'd be pretty cool to see Denny Hamlin driving over there for Michael Jordan after having that relationship. So I've got Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin over there for that team.
I was very close to putting Matt Benedetto in that seat, though. I'm not going to lie.
Wow. Oh,
and just completely just go up. But no, I didn't go that crazy with it. But it would be funny.
Oh, my God.
The guy that stole his first win from him goes out and gives him another ride. But no, I'm going to say Nemechek ends up there in the 45. And then I think probably 1 or 2 years after that, maybe we see Denny Hamlin go over there or something like that. But I don't know. That's way too far down the line. We're already getting a year ahead of ourselves here today anyways. But,
yeah, fair enough.
We got, 2 more? I think?
I've got 2 more. Okay. Yeah, so Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace over there for 2311 Racing. We move on to the other new team that's coming into the Cup Series this season, Trackhouse Racing Team. Daniel Suarez over there for this upcoming season. I think they're going to just stay with one entry. Daniel Suarez is going to be their guy. I don't see them adding a second car in 2022. You feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that is just a great match there with Suarez there. Suarez needs to stay somewhere for multiple years at this point. And when you look at their aspirations, the alliances they have, the fact that they have a charter already in year 1, just makes too much sense to stay there.
Fair enough. I am in complete agreement with that. And the last team for today's Cup Series, silly season predictions, Colleague Racing, a team that's going to be coming to the Cup Series in 2022. They basically said it themselves. I've got AJ Allmendinger coming up to the Cup Series, making his return since he left his JTG days. Going to be in a 1-year contract with the Xfinity Series program. Going to be coming up to the Cup Series. He's going to be running some part-time stuff, most likely on the road courses for them. It just seems like a perfect match for him and that team. AJ Allmendinger is a great person to kind of steerhead that ship in its inaugural season, and I'm hopeful that this is the actual driver that they put behind the wheel of whatever number they decide to choose, because AJ Allmendinger would definitely be a welcome return to the Cup Series. So who do you have for Colleague Racing in 2022?
Yeah, so Colleague Racing goes Cup Racing. I'm going to say that they acquire a charter on loan from Spire, so that's where that tie comes in. I think that Spire will loan out their 2 extra ones, and then they'll keep one themselves for LaJoie. So there's your little tie-in there. And I'm going to say that Justin Haley ends up running the 16 for Colleague Racing with that Spire relationship as well tucked in there. When I look at it here, I think Justin Haley makes a lot of sense for full-time. And then because Colleague likes to do stuff, I think that they might enter Allmendinger in road courses or stuff like that and select races as an open entry as well, because we've seen both last year and now coming into this year even more that they're not afraid of that open entry label as well. So maybe they go into next year, maybe they aren't able to find a charter, maybe that Spire charter goes back on loan or bought back by JTG or something like that, and they have to run the season on an open entry, something like that. I don't know, but I'm going to say that they get it from Spire. Haley goes in the 16, and then Allmendinger does some part-time stuff.
All right, that's a good one. If Haley doesn't end up at Spire for me, he ends up at Colleague. He's going to be in the Cup Series in 2022.
He's going to be in the Cup Series, whether it's going to be which organization.
Yeah,
and hell, it might even be both. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. So for me, I've got only one retirement after this next season in 2022, Ryan Newman, and then the other movement is Ryan Preece leaving the Cup Series. I don't see him returning, but other than that, everybody that's in the Cup Series right now or somebody in the Xfinity Series is going to be coming up. There's only going to be 2 departures for me from the current Cup Series grid that's going into 2022, that is. So, and then I think you got 3 then, correct? If you got Preece, Newman, and Kurt Busch
retiring. Yeah, I've got Kurt Busch retiring, Ryan Newman retiring, and then Preece going back to Xfinity.
Yeah. I think that we could be pretty right on these. I'm going to be honest. I think there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we could be completely wrong.
I don't know. I think we're going to be way out to lunch, but who knows?
I don't know. Way out to lunch, you got it right. You got it right this time.
Hey, I got it right this time.
Bravo.
Out to toast. You got to love it. We need to make a shirt, out to toast. But yeah, we got to get on that merch train or something. But no.
100%.
When I look at it, there's a few interesting ones that are a bit of wild cards, and I feel like we have enough differences where we have our bases covered, where if something does happen, we might have some stuff, but who knows?
I think it's the expansion.
I did decently with our silly season stuff.
Yeah, you did better than me.
Season last year, but even then, we were still missing. Like there was like the 2311 stuff, trackouts. Like there was so much we missed.
We couldn't have predicted all that. Like there's no way.
There's always going to be stuff that we can't predict going into it. Maybe Floyd Mayweather becomes a thing. Like who knows?
Yeah, but Matt Benedetto ends up over there for Floyd Mayweather. But yeah,
I would love that. But
it would be. I think the 2311 racing and the Toyota camp in general is going to be the hub of everything that's going to happen this upcoming season in terms of movement for 2022. Do they add a second car because there was the blueprint of potential expansion on their thing that they released? Like it's going to happen eventually. Do they want to take that risk in 2022? That remains to be seen. I think Brad Keselowski is going to stay over there at Penske, but if he doesn't, where does he go?
The domino effect of that.
Exactly. He's like if he stays over there, it kind of becomes a little bit more simple. But if he leaves, it becomes 10 times more complicated. And
fireworks. I
don't think I'm ready for that mentally, to be honest.
No, of course not.
I wouldn't mind a little bit more of a down year in terms of silly season stuff, because this past year was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Exactly. And I don't imagine that honestly changing, because this sport moves 1,000 miles a minute, and it makes sense that it is a motorsport in that sense. So any final thoughts on the Cup Series side of things before we move into what the Formula One 2022 grid's going to look like? Yeah,
just I like how we
diverse,
similar train of thinking, but very different kind of picks as well. Yes. So that was fun. But I am very fascinated to see where we go with this F1 grid, because there's some weird stuff potentially. I don't know.
Potentially, there is definitely that.